Now let's talk about some of the final areas of your LinkedIn. So these areas are more towards the middle to the very bottom of your LinkedIn profile. And while they're not necessarily as important or as seen as some of the other areas that we talked about your LinkedIn profile, they are still very important. And I do highly recommend that you spend the time to watch this part of this course, as well as go through and fill out these different areas on your own. So we're going to be covering the certification and skills area of your LinkedIn profile. Pretty much here, we're covering your certifications that you've gotten, any sort of certifications like CompTIA certifications, PMI certifications, any sort of certifications that you've gotten from either taking classes or from passing certification exams for certifications that you actually hold, you should place here. Additionally, we can add different skills, and you can add really as many skills as you want to your LinkedIn profile, but I recommend you keep it simple and prioritize maybe the top 10 or so skills that you have. For recommendations, this is essentially a vouching system within LinkedIn. So you can give recommendations. Essentially, you're giving someone a recommendation that appears right on their LinkedIn profile, and you can say really whatever you want. You can say your experience working with them, why you recommend them, and anything like that. Additionally, we can also receive recommendations. So any of our previous managers, coworkers, bosses, anyone that we've worked with can also leave a recommendation. Now, here's one thing. This is a strong part of LinkedIn, but you really don't need more than say 2 or 3 recommendations. And these can be a little bit more time intensive to get because you actually have to go out and ask someone for a recommendation. And additionally, if you're writing a recommendation for someone else, it can take a little bit of time. However, having a recommendation on your profile does really boost it quite a bit, and people see that you're actually working out in the field. And not only that, but they're hearing how other people are perceiving you through your work. We also have publications, honors, and awards. Your publications are any sort of articles or other professional publication that you have out there. They're not necessarily super important when you're first starting out, so don't worry too much about that. Your honors and awards can be anything that you've gotten professionally or in education or volunteering. For example, if you were in sales and you hit some sort of President's Club or some sort of sales milestone or award at your company, you might put that there. Same thing if you're in college, maybe you hit a certain academic achievement, you could put that in there. Maybe you've done some sort of volunteering and you've gotten some sort of honor or award. Go ahead and put that in there. This section isn't necessarily that important, but if you do have honors and awards, it's definitely worth filling out. We also have languages here, which is pretty self-explanatory. If you're bilingual or you speak multiple languages, you could go ahead and put all the various languages that you put in there. Personally, I only speak English myself, so I just leave it blank. And finally, we have our organization's interests as well as our causes. The organizations portion of this is essentially any type of organization that you belong to. It doesn't necessarily have to be work related. These could be different groups outside of work. For example, if you do volunteering, you could place the organization that you volunteered at here. You could place any sort of professional organization that you're a part of. Personally, for me, I am my PMP, so I'm a member of PMI, so I put that in there. You could put different clubs. For example, let's say that you are a part of a computer science club, and maybe you attend the meetings every week, and maybe you've been a part of it for 2 years. Maybe it's a huge part of your professional career. Go ahead and throw that in there. Essentially, any organization outside of work that you've done volunteering for or involved in some way professionally, this is a great place to put. Your interest section on LinkedIn sits at the very bottom of your page, and it's not necessarily that important. If you're very passionate about something, like you follow certain companies or you're involved with certain companies, you can put that there, but I don't recommend really spending too much time here. And lastly, you can add your LinkedIn causes, essentially anything that you're passionate about. This isn't of extreme importance, but let's go ahead and dive into the hands-on portion of these different areas so we could go ahead and take a look and see how they actually look within LinkedIn. All right, so let's take a look at the licenses and certification section. We can add a new certification by pressing the plus button, or if we already have them, we can click this little pencil icon. In this case, I'll go ahead and click that little pencil icon, and let's say that we were adding a new certification. Let's say that I got my CompTIA Network Plus, which I do not have that certification, but we'll just use it as an example. So for example, in the name, I would add the actual name of the certification, as well as the issuing organization, so whoever actually gives those certifications out. You can also add the issue date, so let's say that we got it in September of 2025, we could add that there. And then generally most certifications do have an expiry date. In this case, if we got it in May of 2025, it would expire in May of 2028. Additionally, we can enter the credential ID. Oftentimes you'll find the credential ID on the actual certification itself. So whatever PDF format or PDF file the organization that is certifying you sends you, normally you'll find the credential ID on that actual PDF, or if they send a physical version, normally you'll be able to find it there as well. If not, you can always log into the portal for your certification and likely find your credential ID there. Now, here's one cool thing. If you're looking to actually add your certification in terms of a link to show proof, you can do that there. For example, I recommend that you do Credly. So Credly will go ahead and create a unique URL for your different certifications. It's a little bit of a different process than just adding a certification link directly, but it's definitely worth looking into. And it's a little bit outside of the scope of this course, but it is something that you can do. Let me show you how that would actually look like. So let's go ahead and discard this. And if I click show credential, because I have everything set up with Credly, it would take us to the actual certification and it would show you all the information of the certification. And it would show you that I am verified to actually have that certification and when it was issued. So it's very, very powerful because anyone can just go on your profile, see your certifications and see that they're legit. Additionally, you can add different skills to each certification. So if you have different skills you'd like to add here, for example, for the Cloud Plus, maybe I might put something like cloud, maybe I might put cloud computing, cloud applications, things like that. Personally, I don't really add that here because it does correspond to your skills section. But if you wanted to, you could go ahead and add it and it would show underneath your certification just like that. And in terms of your skills section, you can see this here. You can add up to 100 different skills, although you only really need to add, like I mentioned before, maybe 10, maybe 15. You don't need to fill this whole thing out. You can add different types of skills here, including, in my case, project management, identity and access management. You can also pass various skill assessments and link your different skills to your certifications. And again, you don't have to fill out everything in here. Just add maybe 10 or 15 relevant skills for your specific career. From here, you can see recommendations either received or given, and you can change the various settings that come with it. So let's say that I was giving recommendations or receiving, I can add them here or make them open to public view. As you can see right now, they're private to me, but you can open up those settings to be able to show everyone once you've either received or given any sort of recommendations. Now, in terms of publications, this isn't necessary unless you're creating like blog articles or different things online. In my case, I do tend to write blog articles, so I'll update my profile section here every time that I add a new blog article, but I really haven't added any within the past year or so. Now, in terms of honors and awards, as I mentioned, add anything that you've gotten in terms of honors awards from work, from school, from interning, from volunteering, anything that you want to add here, add it here because it can definitely boost your professional image. In terms of languages here, again, you can add the various languages that you have. And in terms of organizations, you can add the different types of organizations that you're a part of. They don't always necessarily need to be professional, but in my case, I'm involved with PMI as a certified PMP, and I'm involved in Toastmasters, which is a public speaking group. Like I mentioned earlier, interest is another area you can add, but I'm not going to focus too much on this. I would honestly skip this unless you're really looking to build out your profile for some reason and maybe show specific companies here. In terms of your causes, these areas really aren't read that much. I went ahead and filled this out just to show you what it looks like, but just keep in mind, not many people even really read these, and this is at the very bottom of your profile, so it's not necessarily something that you have to fill out. And to recap, we went over your licenses and certifications, and I encourage you to use Credly for your different badges. Definitely add at least 10 to 15 skills. I do recommend that you get between 1 to 3 recommendations, and maybe even giving a few yourself. For publications, this is only necessary if you publish different types of online articles or you're featured in certain articles. Honors and awards, again, can be really any awards that you've received. Languages is fairly self-explanatory. If you're bilingual, you can add different languages there. And the organizations that you're a part of here, go for organizations. And we covered interests and causes as well.